Hello and welcome to WION. You're watching Inside South Asia with me, Neha, Khanna. It's the show that takes an in-depth look at the week's biggest news stories from South Asia. From geopolitics and the economy to technology, trends, climate and culture, we'll bring you up to speed on all that's making news. On the show today, we bring you the story of Joshimath, India's sinking town. With the very real threat of its disappearance, thousands of its residents now stare at an uncertain future. Dubbed India's sinking town. The Himalayan hillside town of Joshimath in the Indian state of Uttarakhand has recently seen a dangerous degree of land subsidence that threatens its very existence. Home to over 25,000 people and a gateway to important pilgrimage sites and tourist destinations, Joshimath is located in an earthquake-prone zone, surrounded by a fragile landscape. In recent days, hundreds of buildings in this town have developed massive cracks, becoming uninhabitable and forcing scores of families to leave their homes. Authorities say these buildings will now have to be demolished. Reckless construction activity is being blamed for the current situation. Once bustling with tourists, today Joshimath is a cautionary tale of what years of rampant infrastructure development in an ecologically sensitive region coupled with climate change can do to a place and its people. The question on everyone's mind is simply this: can Joshimath be saved?
Call it a punishment for mankind's deeds. A hill town of some 25,000 people, a gateway to one of India's biggest pilgrimage centres, is sinking, falling inwards, collapsing. India's Central Building Research Institute and National Disaster Response Force are driving demolition activity. A whopping 678 out of some 4,500 buildings in Joshimath have developed deep cracks over the past few months and years. They have now been tagged unfit to live in. Joshimath has been labelled a sinking town. 30% of the town stands affected. 4,000 people have been moved out. Based on danger perceptions, authorities have divided Joshimath into 3 zones: danger, buffer and safe. But even for areas given the green light, all is far from well.
This is a matter of concern, and the city does not have a proper drainage or sewer system. The soil here is loose, so when the water gushes out, it gets mixed with the soil and erodes it.
The town was just about 30 shops and 400 families, some 2,000 people in the 1960s. It's 4,500 plus buildings here now, and the burden, not on infrastructure, but on nature itself, is showing. The most commonly cited villains of the piece. One, the Tapovan hydropower project that's under construction. A tunnel is actually being dug under and through the town for it. Down the last decade, a host of hydroelectric schemes have been cleared for the area. Tunnel boring machines work overtime for excavation. A water-bearing strata was actually punctured in one such exercise in 2009. Experts say ground subsidence or sinking had taken off then. Whoever said development means things get better, because in all of these, planning and the realities of a fragile ecosystem find little or no voice. And if that wasn't bad enough, spare a thought for the fact that most parts of Uttarakhand state fall in seismic zone 4 or 5, highly prone to earthquakes. And Joshimath town itself came up on what is only the debris of a landslide. Valleys adjoining the town are what's called moraine, a mass of rocks, sediment and soil transported on a glacier. A 2-year-long study says the entire area has been sinking 2.5 inches every year.
The whole mountain range, wherever the they are actually not in situ. They are not in position, but they have all slipped from the higher ranges. So obviously, anything which has slipped from its original position will be always unstable.
Climate scientists have raised concern over a few corrective measures taken after the 2013 Kedarnath floods and the 2021 Rishi Ganga flash flooding. 2 reports of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published in 2019 and 2022 have underscored the region as being very prone to disasters. Switch back to Joshimath sinking in 2023. For the residents, it's about immediate priorities: life and livelihood, home and hearth, restoring peace amid panic pangs.
Our house has been completely destroyed owing to the sinking situation in the town. We are living inside a Sikh temple as we have no other place to live. All our resources have been spent on a house where we cannot go anymore because its foundation is shaken and parts of it have caved in.
Taking on the long-term picture is what beckons hard. It's become about playing catch-up, plugging holes that erupt all too frequently. How much longer, you ask?
It's a country that has been reeling under the devastating impact of last year's unprecedented floods and relentless terror attacks. But Pakistan's troubles seem to have only just begun. Its economy is in dire straits. There is no money left for imports. An acute energy crisis has gripped the country. Things have come to such a pass that the Defence Minister has issued a stark warning asking citizens to brace for blackouts. And it doesn't end there. Pakistan is also in the throes of a massive food crisis. Wheat, flour and other staples have disappeared from the markets. There have been reports of food riots and stampedes at ration shops. The Prime Minister and the Army Chief are touring one country after another, seeking foreign aid. With the economic crisis worsening by the day, is Pakistan going the Sri Lanka way?
If 2022 was a devastating year for Pakistan, with catastrophic floods wreaking havoc across the country and over 1,000 people being killed in multiple terror attacks, 2023 has begun on an equally ominous note. Pakistan's economy is in a quagmire and things are getting worse by the day. Sample this. Pakistan's Defence Minister Khawaja Asif has warned that the country has no money for imports, nor money to buy oil. It may soon run out of electricity and therefore it is time to brace for blackouts.
देखें ये तो existential threat है इस वक्त. हमारे पास जो है import करने के लिए पैसे नहीं हैं. अगर ब्लैकआउट हो जाएगा सारे पाकिस्तान में ब्लैकआउट हो जाएगा हमें उसकी पॉलिटिकल कॉस्ट भी बेयर करनी पड़ेगी लेकिन दुकानें भी बंद हो जाएंगी कारखाने भी बंद हो जाएंगे मार्केटें भी बंद हो जाएंगी सब कुछ बंद हो जाएगा.
Pakistan has already announced a series of unpopular austerity measures. Markets have been told to shut shop by 8:30 p.m. Marriage halls need to close by 10 p.m. But it's far from enough to tackle the growing energy crisis. And if you thought the prospect of being plunged into darkness is the worst thing the people of Pakistan are currently facing, think again. Pakistan is also staring at crippling food shortages. Runaway inflation has turned into a nightmare. Prices are rising at the rate of 30%. The cost of kitchen essentials and staples such as rice, pulses, sugar, salt and flour is spiraling out of control. Remember, at least 34% of the population in Pakistan lives below the poverty line. They earn less than $3.2 a day, which is a little over 700 Pakistani rupees. Today, a 20-kilogram bag of wheat alone costs 3,000 rupees. Moong dal costs about 310 rupees per kilo. Potatoes range between 35 and 90 rupees per kilogram. Onions around 220 Pakistani rupees per kilogram. Chicken is out of reach for many. It's priced at around 460 Pakistani rupees a kilo. Onion prices have gone up 500% compared to last year. Chicken is 82% costlier than it was last year. Salt 50%, tea 65%, wheat flour 45%. The situation is so desperate in the Sindh and Balochistan provinces. The governor of Balochistan has said there is no food left there. Reports have surfaced of food riot breaking out and stampedes at ration shops. Pakistan is running out of palm oil, soybean oil and sunflower oil. Essential items have disappeared from the market. Prices of flour and sugar are expected to go up even further. Ghee is expected to cost 62% more in the coming days.
So the cost of living has substantially gone up for people, especially for people at the at the base of the pyramid. Inflation is 30% plus. The impact of currency devaluation has been catastrophic, and on top of that, because of the exchange rate inconsistency and lack of policy coherence, our industry is being shut. There are massive layoffs. So this is a very dire situation for the country.
Pakistan's shrinking forex reserves are hovering around $5 billion. The only option left is to seek more foreign aid. The Prime Minister of the country, Shehbaz Sharif, went to Switzerland recently, where he co-hosted a fundraiser with the United Nations in the hope of raising some $8 billion as flood relief.
Now we have to go for rehabilitation, reconstruction of our infrastructure to put people back on their feet. It's a huge challenge that we have to put back people on the feet to the tune of 33 million. That is, I think, unprecedented in the contemporary history.
His next stop? The UAE. Reports say Pakistan wants to sell 2 power plants to Qatar because it does not have the money to run them. And it's not the Prime Minister alone. Pakistan's Army Chief too is busy lobbying Gulf countries. General Syed Asim Munir has gone to West Asia on a week-long trip. He is meeting with and imploring leaders in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to give more financial assistance to the debt-ridden country. Finance Minister Ishaq Dar recently said he hopes that Saudi Arabia will park its deposits in the Pakistan Central Bank to provide some relief to Pakistan. Between April and November last year, Saudi Arabia gave Pakistan $900 million in aid and $500 million for importing oil. Over the decades, the Gulf countries have repeatedly bailed Pakistan out. But will they do it this time round? And even if they do, will it be enough to save Pakistan's economy from crumbling? The near-calamitous situation begs the question, did Pakistan ever have a sound economy? Or, after decades of policies dependent on external assistance rather than indigenous growth, was this economic disaster just waiting to happen?
After a year of unprecedented economic and political turmoil and a change of regime, Sri Lanka has announced its first nationwide election. Local government polls will be held before the end of February. It is being seen as a litmus test for the 73-year-old president Ranil Wickremesinghe. After Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled and resigned in the wake of widespread protests, Wickremesinghe, a 6-time Prime Minister, won a parliamentary vote to replace Rajapaksa as president with the backing of Rajapaksa's party. But he does not enjoy a popular mandate. So why are these local polls significant? Prime Minister Wickremesinghe will gain the power to dissolve the current parliament when it completes half of its 5-year term on the 20th of February. Could Sri Lanka witness a snap poll? This as the debt-ridden island nation waits for an IMF bailout package. Take a look at our next report.
July 2022, when Sri Lanka teetered on the brink, throngs of protesters had occupied an area around the president's office for months. The Emerald Isle's worst economic crisis since its independence had hit hard. Mass unrest and protests culminated in the storming and occupation of the then President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's official workplace and residence, forcing him to flee the country. 6 months on, multiple firsts. Sri Lanka announced its first elections, local government polls that will be the first litmus test of which way the political winds will blow. They'll be the first election since Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled and resigned. The first test of popularity for his president Ranil Wickremesinghe, and the first in a state of multi-dimensional crisis that will determine the political dynamics in Sri Lanka ahead. Wickremesinghe had won a parliamentary vote to replace Rajapaksa with the backing of Rajapaksa's SLPP party. But does he have the popular mandate? The timing is extremely critical too. On February 20th, Wickremesinghe will gain the power to dissolve the current parliament. But there's an indication that he wants to. A huge focus will be on the Rajapaksas and the SLPP and whether they have the public support to return. The political outreaches have picked up too, with the Rajapaksas wooing small parties for support.
With the much-delayed local government elections finally on the cards, it is evident that the Rajapaksas are now making their presence felt in the run-up to the elections, which are due to take place in March. But all eyes will now be on the minority parties, more specifically that of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress as well as the Tamil National Alliance, to see their stance, while the majority party, which is the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, headed by the Rajapaksas, are still confident that they can garner the confidence of the public in the upcoming election.
Never in Sri Lanka's political history has something so small had potential and implications so big. The local government elections are known here as Punchi Chandaya or the mini-election. The unit involved is of relatively modest size. Governments and national leaders don't change here. But in a country where there's no clear idea of what change is needed, looking desperately for a $2.9 billion IMF bailout, these elections do give a definite political direction. This round, ahead of provincial and general elections in 2024, could be as big as it gets for now.
Bhutan opened to tourists in 1974. Down the decades, the country, with its picturesque landscape, has attracted a steady stream of curious visitors. Now, there's more reason to explore the Himalayan kingdom's steep mountains and deep valleys. Bhutan's king, a keen hiker, has kick-started an ambitious project to restore many of the roads, turning Bhutan into a hiker's paradise. In an indication of its growing popularity, authorities have introduced a $200 fee per person for the Trans-Bhutan Trail. Perhaps a win-win for Bhutan, nature lovers and hiking enthusiasts.
A hidden Himalayan kingdom that sits between India and China, steeped in an aura of mystery and wonder. It is hard not to smile at glimpses of one of the world's most mystifying and charismatic countries. A utopian mountain kingdom where GDP has been famously ditched in favor of gross national happiness as measure of development. Bhutan, that opened to tourists only in 1974, has attracted a steady stream of curious visitors down the decades. Strong spiritual beliefs, a unique social cohesion, and a fondness for outlandish folklore have always been a huge draw. Now there's even more reason to explore Bhutan's steep mountains and deep valleys. This network of 16th century trails was once used by Himalayan traders and royal messengers. When road arrived in the 1960s, they fell out of use. Now Bhutan's king has kick-started an ambitious project to repair, restore and reuse them. King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk is a keen hiker himself. From Dochula 3,000 meters above sea level, downhill over carpets of sprouting moss and mushrooms. through twisted hemlock trees draped in lichens. Almost 70% of Bhutan is covered in forest. A safe haven for Bengal tigers and black bears. And the antelope-goat mix called the Takin. A string of temples and zongs are peppered on this Trans-Bhutan trail. This is the Tiger's Nest Monastery, an architectural marvel and UNESCO World Heritage Site within easy reach of the Paro Airport. Winding through forests, one comes across hydropower prayer wheels, fluttering prayer flags, steep pathways and countless stairways, away from the roar of traffic and hum of mobile ringtones. Authorities maintain the Trans-Bhutan Trail and recently introduced a $200 fee per person to bolster sustainable development. Remember, Bhutan is the only country in the world that's confidently declared itself 100% carbon negative. It's a place where nature remains a priority. In the 5 centuries since trails were first built in Bhutan, the country has changed dramatically, but there's still a deep respect for the past. In decades to come, there's a happy confidence that verdant forests will not give way here to mayhem that comes packaged as development.
And finally, it was a vibrant celebration of Gay Pride in India's capital. Hundreds of members of the LGBTQ community and their supporters returned to the streets of Delhi after a 3-year COVID-induced hiatus, demanding equal marriage rights. Dancing to drum beats, carrying rainbow flags and placards, and celebrating themselves, they walked to Jantar Mantar near India's parliament. The country's top court scrapped a colonial-era ban on gay sex in 2018. But same-sex marriage is still prohibited in India. In March, the Supreme Court is scheduled to hear petitions demanding same-sex marriage rights. Take a look.
I came out in 2003, I'm standing literally 20 years later, and I see massive acceptance. High time for India to look for equality.
Love is love, the message from Delhi's Queer Pride Parade. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Inside South Asia. Do join us again next week as we return with all the big news stories from the region. Till then, stay safe and well. I'm Neha Khanna signing off. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to WION. World is One.